The vacuum of hyperspace had never felt so alien, yet it was brutally familiar to Tony Stark. One moment, he was calibrating a new quantum experiment on Earth, tinkering with the limits of reality itself. The next, his world imploded into blinding white light and unrecognizable stars. Stark's HUD flickered violently, suit systems whining as arcs of unknown energy scrambled his diagnostics. The familiar vibrations of his suit, usually comforting and precise, had turned unpredictable. And then, with a gut-wrenching lurch that no gravity, or lack thereof, could explain, the Avengers were expelled from their universe. The landing was catastrophic yet controlled, thanks in part to Natasha's quick coordination and Stark's emergency thrusters. They materialized on the surface of a barren, wind-swept planet, its jagged red rocks catching the cold light of two suns. There were no familiar cities, no sounds of humanity, no smell of burning ozone or the faint tang of Earth rain. Only a sharp metallic tang of ozone that the suit misinterpreted as ionized energy, and the sense that they were not alone. Thor, his hand resting instinctively on the haft of Mjolnir, was the first to sense it. "This is not the realm of mortals," he muttered, his voice carrying the weight of centuries and realms beyond comprehension. Even as a god, even as someone who had fought the end of worlds, Thor felt disoriented. The energy in this place was different. He could sense threads of power vibrating invisibly, as if the planet itself hummed with a rhythm foreign yet familiar. "This is the Force," he finally said, almost reverently. "A power unlike the 9 realms. It sings a song of life and death intertwined." Natasha, crouched beside the jagged rocks, analyzed their surroundings with sharp eyes. She had faced gods, monsters, and men who would kill without hesitation. But even she found the scale of this unknown environment unnerving. Every shadow might conceal a predator. Every gust of wind could carry a threat unseen. Clint's arrows were ready, and his eyes darted across the horizon. But even the most precise marksman could feel unease in a place with no landmarks, no predictable angles, no understanding of gravity or electromagnetic anomalies. Bruce Banner, crouched beside a fractured rock face, rubbed his temples as environmental stress and interdimensional strain tugged at his mind. Even in Hulk form, his reactions were slowed by the dissonance of being pulled into a universe with physics that partially obeyed, partially ignored the rules he knew. The gamma energy that usually surged through him was restless, jittering against something he couldn't quite identify. "I don't think this is a place where gamma works normally," he muttered cautiously. "Or at least, not like it does on Earth." Steve Rogers was more pragmatic, scanning the horizon with his trademark focus. Shield raised, posture defensive yet commanding, he took in the barren expanse. "We need to assess the immediate threat," he said, voice calm but insistent. "We don't know what we've stumbled into. Could be a planet. Could be a trap. Could be worse." Even as he spoke, the hair on the back of his neck prickled, a sensation that no super soldier serum could entirely dull. The first sign of life, or rather, intelligent motion, was subtle. Distant lights flickered on the horizon, low and steady, not like fires, more like carefully placed signals. Natasha's keen instincts picked up on them first. "Not a natural phenomenon," she said. "Someone or something is there, and they're watching." Tony's suit systems had stabilized enough to project a wide-spectrum scan. The readings were unlike anything Earth technology had cataloged. Energy signatures fluctuating with the precision of a machine, yet tinged with an organic complexity. "Okay, that's weird," he said aloud. "These things, they're alive, maybe sentient, but not exactly biological. My sensors are going haywire." Thor, ever the bridge between raw power and intuition, felt it first in a physical sense. A tingling in his fingertips, a vibration under his feet, a rhythm that pulsed through the ground. "These beings, these inhabitants, they are attuned to the life of the galaxy itself," he said, voice low. "Not mortal, not merely mechanical. They wield a power that can shape stars or end them." Steve stepped forward. "We need to make contact carefully. No sudden moves. We're not in our world anymore. There are rules here we don't know. And right now we have no allies." "Rules, schmules," Tony muttered, toggling a console in his suit. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to sit here and wait to get shot at by whatever's out there. Let's at least get eyes on them. The group moved cautiously, keeping a low profile, but as they approached the distant lights, the silhouettes became clear. Human-like figures, clad in robes that shimmered in the alien sun. They carried staffs and weapons that hummed with an unfamiliar energy. Some were armed with what appeared to be sword-like constructs emitting light. Thor's eyes widened. The force manifests even here, he said. It wasn't long before the first direct contact occurred. A figure, tall and imposing, stepped from the shadows. The air seemed to warp slightly around him. A helmet obscured his face, but his presence radiated command. His steps were deliberate, measured. He raised a hand. A faint hum of energy cut through the air. The Avengers instinctively tightened formation. "Identify yourselves," the figure's voice called, modulated but unmistakably authoritative. The tone carried weight that seemed to resonate with the planet itself. "I'm Tony Stark, genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist," Tony quipped, though he quickly added, "and these are my associates." He gestured to the team, each standing ready, but wary. The figure studied them, tilting his head slightly. "You are not of this galaxy, yet you carry power, alien, unnatural." The hum in the air grew slightly louder. "You disrupt the balance. Why are you here?" Hulk's growl broke the tension, low and guttural. "We didn't mean to come." "Not here," he said. "Something pulled us. We're trying to understand." Thor stepped forward, hand open in peace. "We are travelers cast by fate into your realm. We seek no war, yet we shall not cower before those who threaten us." The figure considered Thor, then glanced briefly at Tony's glowing armor, at Bruce's simmering energy, at Natasha and Clint's ready stances, and finally at Steve's unwavering shield. "I am Obi-Wan Kenobi," he said, voice calm yet commanding. "Jedi, of the order that once served peace and justice across these stars. You have arrived at a time of great turmoil. The Republic is gone. The Empire rises. And yet, perhaps, you have arrived for a purpose." Natasha's eyes narrowed. "Jedi? That's like mythic warriors, right?" she muttered to Clint. Tony shook his head. "No myths, just, well, myths that shoot laser sword, maybe." Obi-Wan's eyes softened slightly, sensing the truth and intention in the newcomers. "The Force binds all living things across the galaxy. It is rare for beings from outside a universe to traverse this path. Your arrival is not without consequence." Steve lifted his shield slightly, voice firm. "We don't intend to interfere in your affairs unless forced to. But if there's a way to go home, we want to find it. And if there's innocent lives at risk, we don't ignore that either." The Jedi studied them, reading their intentions as carefully as he would a battlefield. "The galaxy you enter is on the brink. Darkness spreads beneath the Empire's hand. Fear, oppression, and silence hold sway. You have power unmatched, though you wield it differently. And yet the choices you make here will ripple far beyond this planet." Thor glanced at his allies. "Then we shall learn your ways, understand your powers, and decide the path to follow. But know this, we are not pawns. We shall act with wisdom and strength." "Then come," Obi-Wan said, gesturing toward a distant, hidden settlement nestled within jagged cliffs. "You must see for yourselves the state of this galaxy, and perhaps begin to understand what is at stake." As the Avengers followed, the twin suns setting behind jagged spires, they knew instinctively that their arrival had changed everything. They were no longer merely heroes from Earth. They were a force unlike any this galaxy had ever seen. Their technology, strength, and strategy could tip balances, disrupt long-laid plans, and awaken latent powers. And the Sith, whatever they were, would not ignore such a breach for long. Thor's voice, full of wonder and warning, broke the silence. "The path before us is tangled with destiny and doom. Be ready, friends. This world may not bend to our will, yet it will test our resolve." Tony smirked, but there was tension behind the grin. "Yeah, destiny's great and all, but I'd settle for a wormhole home right about now." Steve allowed a small, wry smile. Focus. We survive, we learn, and then we decide. Together. And with that, the Avengers walked into the unknown, a galaxy alive with the Force, teetering between oppression and rebellion, and now forever altered by outsiders from another universe entirely. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The journey to Obi-Wan's hidden settlement was slow and deliberate. Jagged cliffs carved from red-brown stone loomed overhead, their surfaces etched with veins of an iridescent mineral that seemed to pulse faintly under the dying light of the twin suns. The wind carried a scent unfamiliar to the Avengers, sharp, metallic, tinged with ozone and a faint undertone of something organic, like a forest after rain, though no forests were in sight. Every step they took echoed against the canyon walls, amplified in a haunting way that made Natasha instinctively glance over her shoulder. Thor walked ahead, Mjolnir held loosely in his hand, attuned to the subtle energy that seemed to hum through the rocks. "The Force is strong here," he murmured, voice reverent. "Even in this harsh landscape, it whispers secrets of life and death. These people, these Jedi, are bound to it in ways my eyes cannot fully measure." Tony Stark's HUD flickered again as he scanned the terrain. The readings were impossible to reconcile with his understanding of physics. Gravity shifted subtly, energy signatures fluctuated, and there were anomalies he could only describe as spatial echoes. "Yeah, okay," he muttered. "This is not New York. This is not even Earth. And whatever is powering these energy readings, it's not coming from tech I know." Clint Barton, ever cautious, moved with a scout's precision. His eyes, accustomed to reading subtle shifts in light and movement, scanned the cliffs. "I've seen a lot," he said quietly, "but I haven't seen anything like this. Could be traps, could be guardians. Keep your heads down." Bruce Banner, trying to keep Hulk in check, frowned as he studied the energy fluctuations. "The Force, it's like gamma radiation, but intelligent. It reacts to us, and it's layered. There are threads I can't measure, not with any tech, not with any physiology I know. It's almost alive." Steve Rogers adjusted his shield and kept pace near the center of the formation. "We need to stay calm. Scan, observe, and only engage if necessary. We don't know how these people react to outsiders. The last thing we want is to be mistaken for a threat." Natasha's voice was low and sharp. "Or we could be walking straight into something that doesn't care about warnings." Her eyes flicked to the shadows, where subtle movement suggested they were not alone. As they crested a narrow pass, the settlement revealed itself. A sprawling enclave carved into the cliffs themselves, buildings blending seamlessly with the rocky terrain, as though grown rather than built. Bridges of polished stone and metal spanned deep chasms. Lights glowed faintly from windows or openings, but they seemed to emit from the very walls. Figures moved along the walkways, tall, robed individuals wielding long, elegant weapons that pulsed with light. The energy from these weapons resonated with the ambient force, creating a subtle vibration that even Tony's suit could detect. Obi-Wan led the group across a bridge into the heart of the settlement. His steps were precise, measured, each movement seemingly in harmony with the Force itself. "You must understand," he said, voice low, "we live in a galaxy divided. The Empire controls most systems through fear and oppression. Many Jedi have fallen. Those who remain are scattered, hiding, or in exile. You have arrived at a time when even a small shift can alter the course of countless lives." Thor's brow furrowed. "Then we have been cast into the maelstrom at the precise moment for our influence to be felt. Fate is compelling." Tony shot him a sideways glance. "Yeah, compelling, sure. But maybe a little heads up next time." Steve, ever the voice of reason, focused on the matter at hand. "Obi-Wan, we need to know who is friend and who is enemy. We don't understand the political landscape here, the factions, or the conflicts. Give us context." Obi-Wan gestured to a high balcony overlooking the central square. "The Empire is a machine of fear and order. Stormtroopers enforce compliance. Star destroyers patrol the skies. The rebellion fights to protect freedom in secret. And the Sith, well, you will not encounter them easily, but their shadow touches all things. Those who manipulate from the dark will see your power and act accordingly. Natasha's eyes narrowed. So we've basically walked into a war zone. In more ways than you understand, Obi-Wan said. And your presence, technologically, physically, spiritually, cannot be ignored. You will be seen as weapons, gods, or monsters. You must decide who you fight for, or if you fight at all. And the Force, it will not remain neutral. It responds to those who disrupt the balance. Thor's voice rang clear and confident. Then we must learn, understand this galaxy, determine where our strength is best applied. And when the time comes, act with justice and honor. Tony toggled his HUD again, frowning. Okay, so far, no one shot at us. That's good. But these readings, it's like their force is interacting with my suit in ways that shouldn't be physically possible. Gravity fields, energy modulation, spatial distortion. It's rewriting physics in real time. Bruce's expression was tense. The force, whatever it is, affects matter at fundamental levels. It's not just mystical. It has physics. And you can feel its influence here. Not everywhere, but enough to throw off calculations, gamma interactions, even neural impulses. We need to adapt quickly, or we risk, well, unpredictable consequences. Obi-Wan guided them to a central chamber, an open hall with smooth walls of carved stone. At its center was a low pedestal, atop which lay what appeared to be a holographic map of the galaxy. Stars twinkled and shifted as if alive, and delicate filaments of energy connected the systems like a web of glowing silk. Here, Obi-Wan said, is the current state of the galaxy. Many systems are loyal to the Empire, many in rebellion. Some cling to neutrality, fearing retribution, and some are lost entirely, consumed by war and corruption. Steve stepped forward, studying the map. If we understand the layout, we can identify where intervention matters most, where the lives we save have the greatest impact. Obi-Wan nodded. Correct. But intervention is not simple. The Force is not a tool. It guides, it informs, but it does not dictate outcomes. Your skills, your technology, and your strength are unprecedented here. You must learn to wield them wisely. One misstep can empower the wrong side, or shift the balance toward darkness. Natasha crossed her arms. Great. So we're godlike, but also walking on eggshells. Got it. Clint added dryly. Sounds like another Tuesday with us. Thor's eyes gleamed with determination. We have faced gods, monsters, and cosmic destruction. We are not daunted. The choice before us is noble. We act to preserve life, justice, and honor. Tony's humor masked a deeper calculation. I get the honor and nobility thing. But let's be real. Anyone who's going to be able to take down the Empire needs more than hammer and arrows. We'll need intel, strategy, and maybe a little improvisation. Obi-Wan's expression softened. Your presence here is not merely fortuitous. It is providence. You bring new options, new ways to challenge oppression. But you must choose carefully. Trust is rare. Misunderstanding is deadly. And the Sith, they will seek to exploit what they cannot comprehend. Your arrival has already alerted more than you know. Thor's grip on Mjolnir tightened. Then we strike not blindly, but with wisdom. We will listen, observe, and when necessary, act decisively. The Jedi's voice carried quiet authority. I sense potential within each of you. Not all is comprehended yet. The Force reaches for those open to its guidance. But beware, this galaxy's darkness is patient. It tests, manipulates, and waits for the unwary. You have power beyond measure, yet the greatest strength lies in knowledge, strategy, and moral clarity. Bruce, processing everything, asked, and if the Force doesn't align with us? Or if our methods conflict? Obi-Wan's eyes held a quiet gravity. Then you will learn. There is no certainty, only consequence. And sometimes even the most noble choice carries cost. In this galaxy, victory and tragedy walk together. Be vigilant, be wise, and remember, your actions echo far beyond what you can see. Tony muttered, great. So basically, we're omnipotent kids in a galactic sandbox with landmines everywhere. Steve smiled faintly. Then we adapt, learn, and act when the moment demands. That's all we've ever done. As the conversation ended, the settlement itself seemed to hum with energy. The Avengers could feel it, a subtle vibration that resonated with their very being. Thor smiled faintly. This is a place of power, of potential, and of destiny. Let us see what lessons it offers, and what battles await us. Outside, the suns dipped below the horizon, casting the canyon in deep shadow. Stars emerged in the sky, brighter and sharper than any Earth had ever known. Somewhere distant and almost imperceptible, the hum of Imperial engines and the faint glint of Star Destroyer hulls reminded the team that their presence was already known and already consequential. Natasha, adjusting her stance, whispered to Clint, "You feel that? Like the whole galaxy is holding its breath." Clint nodded. "Yeah, and I don't think it's just the Force." Tony's HUD flared with multiple incoming signals. "Guys, we're not alone. And I'm guessing these are not exactly friendly greetings." Thor's eyes narrowed as he gazed at the horizon. "Then we prepare, and we meet this challenge as we have always met others, together." And so, the Avengers began the slow, deliberate process of understanding a universe utterly unlike their own, a galaxy of light and shadow, bound by the Force, teetering on the brink of empire and rebellion, and now forever altered by beings from another reality entirely. Every step they took would echo through the stars, and every choice would carry consequence far beyond this canyon, beyond this settlement, and beyond the comprehension of even the wisest Jedi. The real test had only just begun. The first encounter with the Empire was unavoidable. From their hidden vantage point in the canyon settlement, the Avengers could see the distant glint of TIE fighters slicing through the sky like swarms of predatory insects. The hum of their engines carried faintly across the rocky terrain, punctuated by the rhythmic pulse of distant Star Destroyer cannons. The settlement's inhabitants moved with quiet efficiency, guided by the Force, erecting temporary barriers and defensive measures. The Jedi's calm was almost palpable, but even Thor, with centuries of war experience, could feel the tension in the air. Obi-Wan's voice carried across the hall, low and firm. "They have detected your presence. It is inevitable. The Empire senses power beyond comprehension, and they will investigate. We must act decisively, but with restraint. Force is a guide, but not a weapon unto itself." Steve Rogers tightened his grip on his shield. "Then we need a plan. We can't just sit here and wait for the Empire to decide we're a threat." Tony Stark's HUD flickered as he brought up multiple projections. "Yeah, and by the looks of it, they're not sending a courtesy invitation. Multiple signatures, Star Destroyers, TIE squadrons, patrol frigates. They're converging on our coordinates, and given the way they're moving, this isn't reconnaissance. They mean to strike." Natasha Black Widow, scanning the horizon with keen eyes, muttered, "We don't have the luxury of surprise. They know we're here, and they're coming fast. Our advantage is their lack of knowledge about us. Let's make that work in our favor." Thor raised Mjolnir, sensing the currents of the Force mingling with the mechanical rhythms of the Imperial fleet. Then we meet them, not as pawns, not as guests, but as beings who will shape their understanding of power. Bruce Banner studied the patterns of the approaching ships. The Empire's tactics are predictable, militarily efficient. But they don't understand what they are facing. The Avengers are not their standard threat. This is an unknown variable, a disruption in their calculations. He hesitated, his mind already running through potential outcomes. But we need to be careful. One misstep, and their overwhelming firepower could wipe us out before we even respond. Obi-Wan stepped forward. "You will have guidance, but the Force cannot shield you from all outcomes. The Empire's reach is long, and their cruelty precise. You must act in unity and purpose. I will accompany you as best I can, but you must take the lead. Your technology, your abilities, they are beyond anything the Empire has encountered. Use them, but temper your actions with strategy." Steve nodded. "Then we split into teams. recon, defense, and offense. We take what we can from terrain, from the Force, and from our skills. Thor, Bruce, and I will engage their ships and ground forces as needed. Natasha and Clint provide tactical support and infiltration. Tony, you're on tech disruption and heavy artillery. Tony grinned, already running calculations. Copy that, Cap. I've got a few surprises up my sleeve. EMP, electromagnetic pulses, localized gravity distortions. Let's just say they won't know what hit them. The first wave of TIE fighters appeared over the canyon ridge, their formation tight and intimidating. Pilots in black helmets stared blindly through their cockpits, unaware of the extraordinary threat below. Thor raised Mjolnir and swung at once, sending a bolt of lightning streaking across the sky. The energy arced through the air, interacting violently with the Empire's ships. One TIE fighter was obliterated in a flash of blue-white energy. Another spiraled out of control as its systems fried under the unexpected power. Steve rolled forward, shield raised, intercepting blaster fire with precise timing. The energy deflected against the canyon walls, causing rock and debris to rain down. Each movement was calculated. Each defensive action designed to minimize collateral damage while holding the Empire at bay. Natasha and Clint moved through the shadows, picking off isolated stormtroopers with lethal precision. Their movements were synchronized, a dance of deadly efficiency. Natasha used grappling lines to traverse cliffs, striking from unexpected angles, while Clint's arrows, enhanced subtly by Tony's tech, found vulnerabilities in armor plating that the Empire never intended to expose. Bruce hesitated, feeling the familiar stir of rage, the Hulk ready to emerge. He knew that unleashing Hulk entirely could annihilate Imperial forces, but at the risk of devastating the canyon and potentially harming the Jedi and innocent civilians. Instead, he focused on controlled bursts, using his enhanced strength to overturn vehicles, hurl massive boulders, and provide strategic interference, keeping the Hulk restrained but effective. Obi-Wan's presence was a calm center amid the chaos. With fluid movements, he deflected blaster bolts and guided civilians to safety. His lightsaber, a brilliant blue arc of plasma, sliced through droids and armored units alike, but he never acted recklessly. He was teaching, guiding, and protecting simultaneously. Tony activated a pulse from the arc reactor, a concentrated blast of energy that ripped through the approaching TIE fighters. The light illuminated the canyon in violent streaks, reflecting off cliff walls and bathing the battlefield in stark contrast. Okay, he muttered to himself, they weren't expecting this. Steve, watching the waves of enemy forces, noticed subtle patterns in their tactics. They're aggressive but predictable. They rely on numbers and formation discipline. We break that and we gain the advantage. He moved across the battlefield with precision, using his shield to shield allies and redirect energy blasts, every step demonstrating military genius, honed over decades. Thor, sensing the Force's currents, called upon lightning again, this time channeling it through Mjolnir into the canyon walls to collapse sections of terrain, creating natural barriers and funneling Imperial troops into controlled zones. They underestimate what is foreign. Let them learn that their arrogance blinds them. Natasha moved in tandem with Clint, signaling silently. Two left, then cover me. Ready. Clint nodded, firing an explosive arrow that disabled a transport vehicle. Go. Natasha leapt from a ledge, neutralizing a squad of stormtroopers before they could react. The clash intensified, and yet, through it all, the Avengers retained strategy. They weren't just fighting, they were adapting. Every Imperial move was met with counteraction, every advance disrupted by precision, technology, and Force-sensitive insight from Obi-Wan. Suddenly, a massive Star Destroyer loomed into view, its hull blotting out part of the sky. The canyon quaked as its engines fired, sending shockwaves through the valley. Tony's HUD flared wildly. That's not fair. One ship that size against us? Not in a million years. Steve's jaw set. Then we make the odds irrelevant. He raised his shield, eyes sweeping the battlefield. Everyone focus. Precision, coordination. We can't take them all down, but we can disrupt their formation, buy time, and force them to retreat. Thor's voice rang over the chaos. Then let the storm rage. Let the gods of thunder and lightning meet the machinery of men. He swung Mjolnir, sending bolts of energy arcing toward the Star Destroyer, creating massive explosions on its surface. Sparks rained down from above, and TIE fighters were caught in the resulting turbulence. Bruce, feeling the pressure, allowed Hulk to emerge in controlled bursts. Massive hands smashed into Imperial vehicles, hulking figures punching through squads, creating chaos in their ranks. But he restrained full fury, aware that unchecked, he could destroy the canyon and all within it. Obi-Wan moved with surgical precision, guiding Jedi allies through the battlefield. Each lightsaber strike was deliberate, each movement in harmony with the Force. He was a beacon of calm, a counterbalance to the raw power of the Avengers. Tony launched a series of electromagnetic pulses, creating localized blackouts that disrupted enemy targeting systems. TIE fighters faltered, Star Destroyer shields flickered. "There!" Tony shouted. "Hit M where it hurts." Steve coordinated the team's response, directing movements, shielding vulnerable areas, and ensuring maximum effectiveness of their combined efforts. Every member of the Avengers was acting at peak capability, integrating their powers, experience, and ingenuity to offset the Empire's overwhelming numbers. The battle reached a turning point when a squadron of Imperial walkers began moving up the canyon. Thor, sensing their mechanical resonance, called down a storm of lightning. The walkers convulsed under the energy, collapsing one after another. Bruce's controlled Hulk bursts toppled the rest, while Steve directed strategic demolitions to funnel remaining forces. Natasha and Clint continued their lethal precision work, neutralizing stragglers and disabling vehicles. Tony's tech sabotage left the remaining Imperial ships in disarray, unable to coordinate. Obi-Wan's voice carried across the canyon. "You have fought well, but remember, this is only the beginning. The Empire will not be deterred by a single engagement. They will adapt, they will plan. You must be prepared for what is to come." The Avengers regrouped, breathing heavily, surveying the aftermath. The canyon was scarred, debris scattered, yet the settlement and its inhabitants remained largely intact. The Empire's forces were in retreat, disrupted, but their presence was a stark reminder of the galaxy's danger. Thor lowered Mjolnir, speaking with quiet reverence. "They are formidable, but so are we. This galaxy is not yet ours to judge, but our presence has been felt, and the balance it has shifted." Steve placed a hand on his shield, looking at the team. "We've survived the first test, but the Empire will not forget. And there are others who watch us, unseen, waiting. Our real challenge begins now." Obi-Wan's gaze swept the battlefield. "Yes, the Force will guide, but the choices are yours. Your arrival has disrupted the status quo. Allies will emerge, enemies will adapt, and the galaxy will take notice. What you do next will echo across star systems. Prepare yourselves." As the suns dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the canyon, the Avengers understood the truth of Obi-Wan's words. They were no longer outsiders merely observing a galaxy at war. They were participants, forces of change whose actions would ripple far beyond this canyon, beyond this battle, and into the heart of the Empire itself. The Force had awakened, and with it, the galaxy would never be the same. The Empire's retreat did not last long. From the vantage point of the canyon, the Avengers and their Jedi allies could see smoke rising from the Imperial transports that had been disabled. The Star Destroyer remained in orbit, a shadowy Leviathan, its sheer size dwarfing the moons nearby. It was as if the galaxy itself held its breath, waiting to see how these intruders, beings of unimaginable power from beyond, would alter the delicate balance of galactic war. Obi-Wan Kenobi moved along the edge of the canyon, surveying the aftermath. "They are adaptive," he said, his voice calm but tinged with concern. "This engagement was a test. The Empire measures all threats, and when they find anomalies beyond their understanding, they do not retreat for long. They regroup. They strike again." Steve Rogers tightened the straps on his shield, already assessing strategies for the next engagement. Then we make them regret their choice. We've got momentum, and we can't waste it. Thor raised Mjolnir, lightning crackling faintly across its surface. I say we meet them in the skies. Let them learn that no army, no matter its size, can withstand the fury of those who wield true power. Bruce Banner shook his head. Thor, we can't just charge blindly. We need intelligence. We need to understand their fleet composition, deployment strategy, and potential reinforcements. If we overcommit, we could lose the advantage we've gained. Natasha Black Widow and Clint Barton were already scanning Imperial communications frequencies with modified equipment Tony had provided. They're regrouping, Natasha said, her tone measured. Reinforcements are on their way from multiple sectors, but their communications are heavily encrypted, and they're coordinating via subspace relays we can't fully tap into. We'll know more soon, but we're not entirely blind. Tony Stark smirked. Well, that's okay. They can try to hide their plans all they want, but I've got a few tricks to peek behind the curtain. His fingers danced across holographic controls, rerouting energy signatures and hacking into Imperial drone relays. Streams of data flickered across his display. Bingo. Partial feed from their tactical channels. Enough to see how they're moving units, at least temporarily. Steve leaned in, analyzing the data. They're consolidating a strike force, but the question is why now? They know we're not just ordinary attackers. This isn't about local suppression. They're recalculating, sending signals to star destroyers in nearby systems. Obi-Wan's expression darkened. The Empire fears power it does not understand. These beings, your abilities, your technology, are outside the parameters of anything they have studied. They will attempt to assimilate or destroy it. And in doing so, they risk awakening resistance and alliances we have yet to see. Thor's eyes gleamed. Then we shall be the storm they cannot weather. Let them come. Let every ship and every soldier witness what occurs when gods and mortals clash. Bruce's concern was practical. We need to think beyond the immediate confrontation. This is more than a tactical engagement. It's strategic. Every Imperial response will ripple across the galaxy. Other systems, other factions will watch. How we act now will influence future alliances, whether with rebels, neutral worlds, or even Sith opportunists. Steve's mind raced. Then we need to divide their attention, split their forces, and use our mobility. We can't take the Star Destroyer head-on. Not yet. But we can disrupt supply lines, harass patrols, and sow confusion. That will buy time and create openings for engagement on our terms. Natasha and Clint had already taken the first step. Using stealth suits enhanced by Stark Tech, they infiltrated nearby outposts, gathering intelligence and sabotaging communications. Small explosions and interference patterns began to appear across Imperial systems, creating a ripple effect that hampered coordination. Tony initiated localized EMP strikes, carefully calibrated to avoid civilian harm, which caused TIE fighters to spin out and small Imperial craft to stall mid-flight. The impact was immediate. Pilots screamed in frustration over comms, formation integrity dissolved, and panic rippled through the ranks. Thor flew ahead, lifting off from the canyon floor and carrying explosive charges designed to target critical supply convoys. His Mjolnir blazed with lightning, his flight leaving arcs of raw energy behind him. He struck multiple transports simultaneously, sending them spiraling toward uninhabited moons, the resulting shockwaves collapsing sections of orbital debris fields and creating hazards for pursuing forces. Steve and Bruce coordinated ground-based operations, ensuring that sabotage and direct engagements were synchronized with Thor's aerial attacks. Every move disrupted Imperial logistics, while minimizing the risk to civilians and allies. Obi-Wan guided the Jedi contingent to secure vulnerable settlements and evacuate innocents, using the Force to sense danger, redirect attacks, and coordinate strategic defenses. Each Jedi's movements were precise, their lightsabers an extension of their awareness, cutting through droid squads and stormtrooper patrols with elegant efficiency. Meanwhile, Bruce found an opportunity to test controlled bursts of the Hulk's strength. Massive boulders were hurled to obstruct Imperial supply routes, transport vehicles crushed under precise strikes, and heavily armored units displaced. He maintained control, aware that a full Hulk rampage could devastate the environment and alien allies alike. The first tactical success became apparent when an Imperial command vessel attempted to respond to the scattered attacks. Thor's lightning, Tony's tech disruption, and the Avengers' coordinated ground strikes forced the vessel into evasive maneuvers, taking critical time to recalibrate. Communication delays and sensor interference compounded the Empire's challenges. Steve took this opportunity to address the team. We've seen what we can accomplish when we work together. But this is only the beginning. The Empire will retaliate in greater numbers, and their strategies will evolve. We need contingency plans, fallback points, and escape routes. Every step we take now sets the stage for the next confrontation. Natasha crouched, observing a group of stormtroopers advancing along a ridge. We can create diversions. Force them to split their forces. I can handle infiltration. Clint provides long-range cover, and Tony keeps their tech scrambled. Timing is critical. Tony grinned. Sounds like a plan. And by scrambled, I mean making their systems wonder if they're haunted by ghosts from beyond the stars. The first counterattack came faster than anticipated. A squadron of TIE fighters, shielded against electromagnetic pulses and reinforced with heavy laser cannons, approached from the horizon. Their formation was tight, their intent clear. Neutralize the Avengers and any allied resistance before reinforcements could arrive. Thor's hammer glowed with concentrated lightning. Then let them meet the fury of Asgard. He soared toward the enemy, swinging Mjolnir in wide arcs that sent bursts of electrical energy streaking across the sky. TIE fighters were torn apart, engines flaring, some exploding in midair. The remainder faltered under the combined onslaught of Avengers and Jedi. Steve led the ground team, shield raised, directing civilians to safer locations while using his tactical acumen to block incoming fire. Bruce manipulated debris and vehicles, intercepting walkers and creating barricades to channel Imperial forces into disadvantageous positions. Natasha and Clint continued precision strikes, their teamwork seamless, devastating the remaining patrols with minimal exposure. Tony unleashed a concentrated energy pulse at the approaching Star Destroyer, disrupting targeting systems and creating temporary blind spots. Starfighters within those zones collided or were forced to retreat, the disruption echoing across the battlefield. Obi-Wan's guidance was instrumental. Do not underestimate the power of coordination. The Force can amplify strategy, but only when paired with action. You are not merely combatants. You are catalysts of disruption. As the battle progressed, it became clear that the Empire was unprepared for the Avengers' unique combination of abilities, tactics, and adaptability. Each strike, each strategic move, forced the Imperial forces into reactive positions, eroding their confidence and exposing vulnerabilities that would have been inconceivable against ordinary adversaries. Thor, circling above, shouted a warning. They are regrouping near the canyon rim. We must act swiftly. Steve's response was immediate. We split forces. Thor, Hulk, and I handle the frontal assault. Natasha and Clint continue infiltration and sabotage. Tony, keep their tech disrupted. Obi-Wan, guide the Jedi to protect civilians and cover flanks. The synchronized assault was devastating. Imperial forces, though vast and well-equipped, were ill-prepared for a multi-dimensional threat that combined Asgardian might, superhuman ingenuity, tactical brilliance, and mystical guidance. By the time the sun had fully risen, the initial waves of Imperial response had been repelled, scattered, or incapacitated. Obi-Wan surveyed the battlefield, his calm demeanor masking deep concern. You have performed extraordinarily. But remember, this is merely the first engagement. The Empire will not falter permanently. They will learn. And when they do, they will come with greater force. You must continue to adapt, to anticipate, and to act with purpose. Steve lowered his shield, glancing at the team. Then we keep moving. We've shown them we exist, we've disrupted their operations, and we've protected the innocent. Now it's time to take the fight to them, not recklessly, but strategically. We set the stage for the battles to come. Thor's expression softened slightly, though his eyes still burned with intensity. And the sky shall tremble at our approach. They will remember that no army, no matter its discipline or might, can face what comes from worlds beyond their imagining. Bruce, still catching his breath, nodded. The Hulk is ready, controlled or not. But we need to be smart. Every move we make now will shape how the galaxy views us, and how the Empire reacts. Natasha and Clint exchanged a look, silently acknowledging the coordination and trust that had carried them through the morning's chaos. They were operating at peak efficiency, but each of them understood that the Empire's retaliation would be far more organized and relentless. Tony tapped a few commands into his suit, eyes scanning multiple overlays. I've got eyes on reinforcements moving from hyperspace lanes. They're coming in waves. But with the delays we've caused, they won't arrive fully coordinated. That gives us a window. And you know me, I like windows. Obi-Wan's voice cut through the comms. Then prepare for the next phase. Learn from the first engagement, anticipate their tactics, and remember that your arrival here has already shifted the balance. The galaxy watches, and your actions will echo across systems, yet untouched by conflict. We are more than warriors in this fight. We are catalysts for change. As the team prepared for the next engagement, it was clear that the Avengers were no longer mere interlopers. They had become actors in the galaxy's unfolding narrative, their presence forcing both the Empire and allied forces to reconsider strategy, alliances, and the very nature of power. The battle for the canyon was won, but the war across star systems, factions, and philosophies, was only beginning. The aftermath of the canyon battle left both Avengers and Jedi alike contemplating the magnitude of what they had unleashed. Across the ridge, the horizon burned with smoke from Imperial transports, while distant hyperspace trails indicated reinforcements racing to join the fray. Every sound, the hum of lightsabers, the crackle of Tony's energy shields, the low rumble of Hulk's controlled movements, reminded the team that the galaxy had just shifted in ways neither the Empire nor the New Republic could fully comprehend. Steve Rogers was first to break the contemplative silence, adjusting his shield. We can't wait for the Empire to decide our next move. They'll gather strength. They'll learn from this fight. If we want to influence the war in meaningful ways, we need to hit their operational nodes before they can consolidate. Bruce Banner stepped carefully over a partially destroyed speeder. Agreed. But we need to think bigger than just tactical strikes. The Empire controls entire star systems. Their influence is woven into the political, economic, and military fabric of the galaxy. A single engagement, even a victory like this, only scratches the surface. Obi-Wan Kenobi nodded, his robes fluttering in the canyon wind. The galaxy is fragile, as you have witnessed. You have power here, yes, but power is not the same as understanding. You may alter battles, but to alter the war, you must understand the balance of forces, the factions that operate in shadow, and the subtleties of the Force itself. Your abilities are extraordinary, but the universe does not bend to them without consequence. Thor's hammer glowed faintly as he surveyed the wreckage. Consequence is a small price for glory. Let the Empire rise and fall like wheat before the storm. They will remember this day and the might that descended from beyond the stars. Natasha Romanoff's expression was calm but sharp. Glory doesn't win wars, Thor. Strategy does. And so far we've been reactive. That changes now. We need information, allies, and leverage. Tony Stark, already tapping into the remnants of Imperial communications, smirked. Allies, huh? Well, we've got a few options. Rebels, rogue Jedi, neutral planets, even Imperial dissenters, if we play it right. But first, we need intel on their fleet movements. If we're going to hit them before they regroup, we need to know exactly what they're planning and where. Clint Barton crouched behind a partially destroyed wall, scanning the horizon. I've been tracking patrol routes. They're sending advanced TIE interceptors from nearby sectors. Whatever we do, we've got a window of maybe a few standard hours before the reinforcements arrive. Obi-Wan interjected, his tone grave. The Force will guide us, but it cannot compensate for poor planning or overconfidence. We must strike decisively, yes, but we must also understand the factions that will respond. The Empire is not monolithic. It is composed of fear-driven commanders, ambitious officers, and loyal soldiers. Each can be turned or crushed, but only with precision. Steve stepped forward, projecting a plan. We split into 3 units. Natasha and Clint continue with sabotage and intelligence, disrupting supply lines and communications. Tony provides technological support and long-range surveillance, keeping the Empire in a state of confusion. Thor, Bruce, and I engage in direct strikes where needed, using mobility and firepower to disrupt their formations while minimizing civilian exposure. Obi-Wan guide the Jedi in evacuations, protective interventions, and flanking maneuvers. Everyone clear? The team nodded, understanding both the risks and the stakes. As they moved, the Avengers observed the galaxy with a new lens. Planets were not merely backdrops for conflict. They were ecosystems, political entities, and cultural hubs. Even minor settlements had their own governance, militias, and traditions. Understanding them would be crucial. The first node of the plan involved a heavily fortified Imperial communications relay on a nearby moon. Intelligence suggested it controlled multiple planetary networks, feeding data back to the Star Destroyer orbiting the canyon. Disabling it would temporarily blind the Empire's operational capacity in the sector. Natasha and Clint approached under the cover of darkness. The moon's surface was rugged, scarred by previous Imperial mining operations. Security patrols moved with mechanical precision, droids scanning for anomalies and Imperial soldiers maintaining strict watch. Natasha's stealth expertise allowed her to move undetected, slipping past guards with acrobatic finesse. Clint provided overwatch, taking careful shots to eliminate threats without drawing attention to the main mission. Tony monitored remotely, feeding real-time data into Natasha's HUD. 2 guards to your left, a patrol loop coming in 5 seconds. Adjust your path by 30 degrees. You'll have a clear corridor to the relay. Natasha's movements were precise, a blend of calculated acrobatics and quiet lethality. She disabled surveillance nodes, neutralized droids, and avoided unnecessary confrontation. Each step brought them closer to the relay, and each success further destabilized Imperial confidence. Meanwhile, Steve, Thor, and Bruce advanced toward the Star Destroyer's forward deployment zone, seeking to intercept reinforcements. The terrain was treacherous. Ridges, canyons, and sudden chasms provided both cover and hazard. Steve coordinated movement, signaling directions, anticipating enemy maneuvers. Thor's flight allowed rapid response to sudden Imperial units, Mjolnir discharging controlled bursts of lightning to disable vehicles without causing planetary devastation. Bruce, controlling Hulk's strength carefully, provided heavy support, moving massive obstacles to create choke points and disrupt enemy formations. Obi-Wan and the Jedi acted as guides, using the Force to sense enemy movements, anticipate attacks, and protect non-combatants. Their presence was subtle but crucial. A single Jedi could tip the scales in skirmishes, their ability to move objects, anticipate danger, and deflect blaster fire proving invaluable. The Avengers' coordination demonstrated a level of synergy unusual even for them. Each member acted within their specialty while integrating with the broader plan. Tony manipulated energy flows to disrupt enemy targeting. Natasha and Clint executed precise sabotage. Thor and Hulk provided overwhelming physical force, and Steve orchestrated the operations like a master tactician. The battle reached a critical juncture when Imperial reinforcements arrived from hyperspace. A squadron of TIE interceptors emerged, flanking the Avengers and Jedi. The sky above the canyon lit up with lasers and lightning, energy beams colliding with shields and Mjolnir's protective arcs. Thor roared, launching into the aerial assault. Lightning tore through the sky, disabling fighters in quick succession. Hulk's controlled leaps and Bruce's calculated movements on the ground neutralized enemy walkers and artillery positions. Steve directed the team with precision, moving from cover to cover while coordinating attacks and ensuring civilian safety. Natasha and Clint completed their relay sabotage, sending a cascade of failures through the Imperial Communications Network. TIE interceptors were disoriented. Coordination among Imperial squads fell apart, and the morale of the remaining forces wavered. Tony initiated a final, concentrated strike against the Star Destroyer's sensor array. A pulse of energy surged toward the vessel, temporarily blinding its targeting systems. Starfighters lost coordination, missiles misfired, and the massive vessel lurched in orbit, forced to recalibrate. Obi-Wan's voice resonated through the team's comms. "We have created an opening. Strike now, decisively, but remember the balance. Avoid unnecessary destruction, protect innocence, and maintain focus on the mission's objective." The Avengers advanced, taking the offensive. Imperial forces were disorganized, reacting instead of dictating. Each move by the Avengers or Jedi amplified chaos, forcing the Empire to commit resources inefficiently. It was a testament to the power of coordination, strategy, and the unique abilities the team brought from another universe. The engagement concluded with the Star Destroyer retreating temporarily to reassess. Imperial commanders had underestimated the combination of superhuman ability, tactical ingenuity, and force-enhanced guidance. The Avengers had not merely survived, they had altered the operational landscape in the sector. As the dust settled, the team regrouped. Steve surveyed the battlefield. "This is the first step. The Empire is shaken, but they're not defeated. Our presence here is a game changer. We've bought time, disrupted supply lines, and shown them that their conventional tactics are insufficient against us." Thor's expression was a mix of triumph and anticipation. And soon, they shall learn that even fleets and armies are powerless against the storm from beyond. The galaxy itself shall tremble at our approach. Bruce nodded, adjusting his stance. "We've proven we can coordinate effectively here. But every action we take sends ripples. We need to prepare for the next phase, predict the Empire's counters, and leverage every advantage." Obi-Wan placed a hand on Steve's shoulder. "Remember, Captain Rogers, this battle was tactical. The war is strategic. And your choices now, every alliance you forge, every engagement you initiate, will ripple across the galaxy. Be wise, be precise, and above all, remain vigilant. The Force will guide you, but it does not dictate. You shape your destiny as much as any Jedi or Sith." Steve nodded solemnly. "Then we continue. Every planet, every system we touch, every Imperial unit we disrupt, that's the path forward. We set the stage for a galaxy-wide strategy, one that the Empire will not anticipate. And we do it together." Thor raised Mjolnir high, the sky briefly illuminated with arcs of lightning. Then onward. The Avengers and their allies shall not merely confront this galaxy's evils. We shall redefine what is possible in the universe itself. The canyon, once a silent stage for the initial engagement, now hummed with anticipation. The Avengers had proven their presence, disrupted Imperial operations, and forged a fragile but potent alliance with the Jedi. Yet even as victory loomed, shadows of the Empire's retaliation stretched across distant stars, promising that the next engagement would test them in ways far beyond raw power or tactical acumen. The galaxy had been touched by outsiders, beings from another reality, beings whose very existence defied Imperial understanding. And with that touch, a new chapter in galactic history began, one written by heroes who wielded abilities far beyond the ken of ordinary mortals, and yet chose to act with restraint, strategy, and purpose. The calm after the initial engagement was only a prelude. As the Avengers and Jedi surveyed the canyon battlefield, the reality of their presence in this galaxy became starkly apparent. They were no longer simply interlopers. They were now catalysts, and the consequences of their arrival would ripple far beyond any single skirmish. Imperial communications were fractured, but intelligence reports indicated reinforcements were en route, including elite stormtrooper units, TIE Defender squadrons, and potentially Inquisitors, agents trained specifically to hunt for sensitive beings. The situation demanded not just strength, but strategy, diplomacy, and a nuanced understanding of the galaxy's tangled politics. Steve Rogers convened a council with the Avengers and the Jedi leaders. Obi-Wan Kenobi projected a calm authority, his robes stirring in the canyon wind. "You have acted decisively, Captain Rogers," he said, "but raw force is insufficient. The Empire adapts quickly. Every strike you make echoes across systems. If we do not anticipate their responses, we risk escalating conflict beyond control." Thor perched on a high ridge, adjusted Mjolnir, and let out a deep, echoing laugh. "Then let them come. I would face 10 legions of stormtroopers, 100 squadrons of TIE fighters, and even a Sith apprentice, and I would still call it sport." His eyes gleamed with the thrill of battle, yet even he sensed the undercurrent of caution in Obi-Wan's tone. Natasha Romanoff, crouched beside a partially destroyed speeder, spoke with measured clarity. "Thor's enthusiasm is appreciated, but we're not just fighting for entertainment. The Empire's influence is woven into the very infrastructure of this galaxy. Star systems, supply chains, intelligence networks, they all feed into one centralized machine. Disrupt one node and another compensates. We need to think several steps ahead." Bruce Banner adjusted his glasses, scanning Imperial data fragments recovered from the canyon skirmish. They've already begun rerouting reinforcements. They're coordinating via encrypted hyperwave frequencies and automated droid intermediaries. Even with my and Tony's help, this will require careful planning. One misstep, and we risk not just failure, but massive collateral damage. Tony Stark, perched on a boulder with his holographic interface humming, smirked. "Lucky for us, disruption is kind of my thing. I can interface with Imperial comms, manipulate their droid networks, and maybe even turn some of their surveillance against them. But, yeah, Banner's right, we need a game plan that's more than just punching things until they stop working." Obi-Wan nodded thoughtfully. "And there is the human element. The Empire relies on fear as much as technology. Its officers are ambitious, often reckless, when they perceive weakness. Even a single misjudgment can cascade into disaster. Your presence, extraordinary though it may be, will be a signal to many that the galaxy's balance has shifted." Steve looked across the group. "Then let's split responsibilities." Natasha and Clint continued gathering intel, establishing lines of communication with potential rebel sympathizers and local militias. Thor and Hulk will engage in rapid response tactical strikes, focusing on critical Imperial assets. Tony will handle technological infiltration and manipulation, and the Jedi will provide guidance, protection, and force-based reconnaissance. Everyone knows their role. We don't get a second chance if the Empire hits back hard. As plans were laid, the Avengers began to recognize the complexity of galactic politics. Local populations viewed the Empire with varying degrees of fear and resentment. Some were quietly rebellious, others loyal out of self-preservation. Systems like Corellia, Chandrila, and Lothal had semi-autonomous governments, each with their own agendas. Navigating these political undercurrents was as dangerous as any battlefield. Natasha, always attuned to nuance, began discreetly contacting sympathetic planetary leaders, gauging the potential for alliances or logistical support. Meanwhile, the Jedi led by Obi-Wan conducted a series of force-guided reconnaissance missions, reaching beyond the immediate battlefield. They sensed disturbances in the Force, waves of fear, anger, and ambition radiating from Imperial centers and key political nodes. These ripples indicated more than military activity. They signaled cultural and systemic vulnerabilities. The Avengers, while powerful, were not accustomed to such subtle cues, and their reliance on raw strength would need to be tempered by insight. The team's next target became evident: an Imperial research facility on a moon orbiting a gas giant. Reports indicated experimentation with new battle droids capable of countering force-sensitive opponents and enhanced TIE variants. Disabling this facility would delay production and provide critical intelligence. However, the location was heavily guarded, not just with troops, but automated defense grids and energy shields designed to repel conventional attacks. Tony Stark activated his holographic map, highlighting approach vectors. "We're looking at orbital defenses, a shielded perimeter, and automated sentries. Standard bombardment won't work. But if I can reroute energy flows through their grid, we might create a temporary opening for infiltration. Natasha and Clint can slip in, neutralize interior defenses, and gather intel. Meanwhile, Hulk and Thor keep patrols distracted, and Steve provides cover and leadership. Obi-Wan interjected, his voice grave. The Force will aid you in sensing danger and avoiding unnecessary conflict, but it cannot substitute for judgment. Be precise, be disciplined, and understand that failure has consequences far beyond your comprehension. The mission began under a fractured sky, with the gas giant casting a murky orange glow across the facility. Thor soared ahead, Mjolnir crackling, drawing the attention of orbital sensors and automated turrets. Hulk's controlled leaps demolished key patrol units, creating diversions without causing catastrophic structural damage. Steve maneuvered the team with a mixture of battlefield instinct and strategic foresight, ensuring each move synchronized with the next. Natasha and Clint infiltrated the interior, neutralizing automated security nodes and avoiding detection. Their precision strikes disabled communication lines and security protocols, while Tony remotely guided their movements, hacking systems in real time to anticipate and counter automated defenses. The deeper they moved, the more they realized the Empire's reach was insidious. Experiments in mind control droids, data collection on Force-sensitive populations, and covert surveillance of planetary leadership. Inside the facility, they encountered a prototype battle droid designed to counter Force-sensitive combatants. Its movements were calculated, fluid, and terrifyingly fast. Natasha and Clint engaged in careful combat, using misdirection and tactical acumen, while Tony remotely disrupted its energy feed, providing split-second openings. The droid fell only after an intense struggle, signaling both the ingenuity and the danger inherent in Imperial innovation. Meanwhile, outside the facility, Thor and Hulk faced escalating challenges. Reinforcements arrived unexpectedly, including elite stormtrooper units and specialized walkers designed to withstand superhuman attacks. Thor's lightning clashed with energy shielding, and Hulk's controlled strikes tore through armor plating. But each victory came with the risk of overexposure. Steve constantly redirected their focus, ensuring the enemy remained off balance, preventing them from regrouping or fortifying key positions. The infiltration team successfully extracted critical data, revealing plans for widespread deployment of these new droids and TIE variants. This intelligence would allow the Avengers and the Jedi to anticipate future Imperial operations, providing a strategic advantage across multiple systems. The successful extraction, however, came at a cost: minor injuries, exhaustion, and the constant reminder that the Empire would adapt swiftly, learning from every encounter. As the team regrouped, Obi-Wan spoke with quiet authority. This mission demonstrates the value of precision, planning, and unity. You have struck a blow not just physically, but strategically. But remember, this galaxy has a memory. The Empire will retaliate. The Jedi must remain vigilant, and your presence, while powerful, cannot replace wisdom, foresight, or discipline. Every action you take from here will echo across systems. Steve nodded. Understood. We're not just here to fight. We're here to shift the balance, strategically. And with the Jedi guiding us, we can do more than survive. We can begin to influence outcomes across the galaxy. But we also have to anticipate consequences, understand alliances, and make choices that aren't always black and white. Thor raised Mjolnir, eyes alight. Then we move onward. Let the Empire see that the Avengers, joined by the Jedi, are a force that even the mightiest fleets cannot anticipate, let alone withstand. The Avengers' presence in the Star Wars galaxy was no longer an anomaly. It was a new reality, one that would challenge existing power structures, disrupt Imperial dominance, and redefine the galaxy's understanding of heroism, strategy, and strength. As hyperspace trails in the distance hinted at incoming Imperial reinforcements, the team prepared to engage again, not with blind force, but with precision, intelligence, and the combined might of two universes converging on a single battlefield. The aftermath of the moon infiltration was only the beginning. Intelligence gathered by Natasha, Clint, and Tony revealed a disturbing truth. The Empire was accelerating production of experimental battle droids designed to counter force-sensitive adversaries. These were not ordinary war machines. They were engineered with specialized sensors capable of predicting force movements, sophisticated adaptive armor resistant to blasters, and AI logic designed to exploit tactical weaknesses. Each new prototype represented an exponential escalation in Imperial capability, a technology leap that, if unchecked, could threaten the entire galaxy. Obi-Wan Kenobi convened a private council with the Avengers aboard a discreet Jedi transport shuttle hovering near the gas giant. The hum of the hyperdrive was a constant, soothing vibration, yet tension permeated the cabin. The Empire is no longer content with conventional war, Obi-Wan explained. They seek to weaponize against what they perceive as anomalies in the Force. Your presence accelerates this. The galaxy perceives that its natural balance has been disrupted. You must proceed with caution. Steve Rogers leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. So what's our play? We can't just wait for them to adapt. We hit where it hurts, fast and decisively. But we also need to keep civilians and planetary infrastructure from becoming collateral damage. Thor, leaning casually against the hull, spat out a hearty laugh. Collateral damage? Huh. In my world, we call that theater. But I suppose subtlety has its merits here. He tapped Mjolnir lightly against the floor. Still, I grow impatient with politics and caution. Let us strike where they least expect and show the Empire the might of the Avengers. Natasha's eyes flickered toward Thor. Subtlety isn't just a suggestion, Thunderer. Every action we take is monitored. The Empire has spies and informants in almost every system. Reckless displays of power will trigger immediate retaliation, not just from military forces, but from political and criminal factions aligned with the Empire. Her tone was sharp, deliberate. She had long since recognized that brute strength alone would not secure long-term advantage. Hawkeye, crouched beside a tactical console, studied schematics of Imperial supply lines. We can't just attack their factories, he said, voice quiet but firm. We need disruption that lasts. Sabotage communications, cut supply chains, sow confusion in their chain of command. If they can't fight as a coordinated whole, their numbers don't matter. Bruce Banner, scrolling through stolen Imperial schematics, added cautiously, and we have to remember the environmental factors. Some of these factories are in sensitive systems. Gas giants, nebulae, asteroid belts. They're treacherous. We can't just launch Hulk in and smash everything. There's too much at stake. Tony Stark grinned. Leave the smashing to Thor and Hulk, the finesse to the rest of us. I'll handle the tech side, interfacing with hyperwave networks, sabotaging droid production lines remotely, turning TIE reconnaissance against them. With a bit of ingenuity, we can cause maximum chaos with minimum footprint. He tapped at his holographic display, sending digital interference across multiple Imperial nodes. Just like theater, as Thor would say, but more stealthy. Obi-Wan nodded gravely. And remember, beyond the military calculus, there are lives at risk. Your actions create ripples. Entire systems may interpret our interventions differently. Some may see hope, others fear. You must weigh every strike carefully. The Force can guide you, but wisdom must govern your actions. With strategy agreed upon, the Avengers split into specialized teams for simultaneous operations. Natasha and Clint would lead infiltration squads targeting communications hubs, blacking out Imperial sensors and intercepting intelligence traffic. Tony would remotely manipulate the Empire's internal networks, feeding false data, redirecting production, and subtly dismantling their AI logic without revealing the source. Steve, Thor, and Hulk would engage in controlled field operations, creating diversions and intercepting reinforcements, ensuring the infiltration teams had sufficient time to complete objectives. Obi-Wan and other Jedi would provide reconnaissance, sensing Imperial patrol patterns, force-sensitive anomalies, and tactical opportunities invisible to conventional sensors. The first operation targeted a secret droid production facility orbiting an industrialized moon. It was a sprawling complex, partially subterranean, protected by energy shields, automated turrets, and squads of elite stormtroopers. The facility produced both infantry-class droids and prototype anti-force combat units. Intel indicated that the Empire planned to mass deploy these units across contested systems within weeks, a timeline that necessitated urgent intervention. Thor led the initial diversion, descending from orbit in a controlled freefall, lightning arcing from Mjolnir to the surface, disabling perimeter generators and drawing patrols away. Hulk followed, crashing through outer defenses and engaging heavy assault droids. Steve coordinated maneuvers with precision, using terrain and cover to maximize efficiency and minimize unnecessary destruction. Keep moving. Push them back, but avoid civilian areas. Remember the intel we need intact, he shouted over the din of battle. Inside the facility, Natasha and Clint slipped through ventilation shafts and maintenance corridors, disabling security nodes and cutting communications. They moved with uncanny coordination, neutralizing patrols silently and leaving no trace. The contrast between their quiet, lethal precision and the chaotic thunderstorm of Thor and Hulk outside was stark, a duality of tactics that confounded Imperial command. Tony, monitoring remotely, disrupted power flows, creating temporary blackouts and triggering false alarms that sent reinforcements in the wrong direction. He interfaced with the facility's central AI, introducing subtle programming errors that would propagate across other production sites. A little chaos in the code, he muttered, and the Empire won't know which end is up until it's too late. The interplay between human ingenuity, superhuman power, and technological mastery became evident. The Avengers were not just physically dominating. They were reshaping the battlefield on multiple levels simultaneously. The team encountered an experimental droid unit inside the facility, a prototype designed to counter force-sensitive combatants with adaptive attack algorithms. Natasha and Clint employed stealth, traps, and coordinated shots to disable it, while Tony manipulated energy conduits to overload its systems. Thor and Hulk, sensing the threat outside, adjusted their diversions to prevent reinforcements from reaching the facility. The droid, though formidable, was ultimately defeated through the combination of strategy, technology, and raw power, highlighting the effectiveness of multi-faction collaboration. Once the droid and internal defenses were neutralized, Natasha extracted the schematics and production data. These files revealed not only technical specifications, but also deployment plans, supply chain nodes, and command hierarchies. The information was invaluable. The Avengers now possessed the ability to predict and preempt Imperial operations across multiple systems. They were no longer reactive. They had the tools to shape the battlefield proactively. As they regrouped outside the facility, Obi-Wan addressed the team. "You have acted decisively and with skill. But remember this, the galaxy is vast, and the Empire is resilient. Every strike will elicit a response. Your presence, while potent, is a signal. You must anticipate the consequences as much as the immediate gains. Victory here is temporary. Strategy ensures lasting impact." Steve looked at the team, determination etched on his face. "We adapt. We learn. Every move we make now is a step toward tipping the scales. The Empire will retaliate, but we'll be ready. And we'll do it in a way that protects those who cannot protect themselves." Thor raised Mjolnir high, the weapon crackling with residual energy. "Let them come. We shall face their might, not with trepidation, but with honor, strategy, and the combined strength of worlds. And may the Force be our unseen ally in the chaos to come." The success of the operation was not just a tactical victory. It marked the beginning of a new paradigm. The Avengers were no longer mere visitors. They were catalysts, reshaping the Star Wars galaxy's understanding of power, strategy, and resilience. Their coordinated efforts, blending human ingenuity, superhuman capability, and Force guidance, demonstrated that even the most entrenched galactic powers could be challenged when different strengths converged. Yet the shadows of retaliation loomed. Imperial leadership, alerted to the intrusion, would soon marshal countermeasures. Inquisitors' elite strike teams and technological contingents were already moving. And with the Empire's resources vast, the next confrontation promised even higher stakes. The Avengers would have to balance brute force with diplomacy, insight with improvisation, and individual skill with collective strategy. The stage was set for a prolonged engagement, a galaxy-wide chess game where every move carried profound consequences. As hyperspace trails flickered in distant systems, signaling Imperial maneuvers, the team prepared for the inevitable. Natasha coordinated communication lines with sympathetic planetary leaders, forging early alliances that would prove crucial. Tony continued to manipulate digital networks remotely, creating a web of misinformation and logistical confusion. Thor and Hulk maintained visibility, ensuring the Empire could not regroup without facing immediate forceful consequences. Steve, guided by Obi-Wan's counsel, maintained command over both tactical and strategic dimensions, ensuring that every action contributed to long-term objectives rather than short-term spectacle. In this convergence of universes, where Avengers technology met Star Wars mysticism and military structures, the galaxy itself became a living battlefield of ideas, philosophies, and capabilities. Every decision, every strike, and every alliance would reverberate across light years, challenging assumptions, testing loyalties, and redefining the meaning of heroism in a galaxy unaccustomed to beings of such power, resolve, and ingenuity. The game had only just begun, and the Empire would soon learn that these were not ordinary intruders. They were a force unlike any seen before. The Empire did not respond with panic. It responded with precision. Across the galaxy, hyperspace lanes lit up as Imperial task forces redeployed with chilling efficiency. Star destroyers shifted patrol routes. Inquisitorious vessels emerged from shadowed systems. Intelligence bureaus tightened their grip on neutral worlds. The Empire had identified a truth it could no longer ignore. The Avengers were not a temporary anomaly. They were a destabilizing variable capable of rewriting the balance of power. And Darth Vader had taken notice. On Mustafar, within the obsidian fortress that echoed with the hum of ancient machinery and the ever-present rasp of his breathing, Vader stood before a hollow projector. Blue-white projections flickered. Combat footage of Thor summoning lightning on an airless moon, Hulk tearing through armored walkers, Captain America coordinating battlefield movements with impossible efficiency, Iron Man dismantling Imperial networks from light years away. These are not Jedi, an Imperial intelligence officer said carefully, nor Sith. Their abilities do not align with any known Force discipline. Vader said nothing at first. His gloved hand tightened slightly. The Force moves through them regardless, he finally intoned. I feel disturbance. Not chaos. Purpose. The Emperor's laughter echoed faintly through the chamber via encrypted transmission. Purpose can be bent, Lord Vader. Or broken. Send the Inquisitors. Test them. Learn their limits. And so the trap was set. The Avengers first sensed something wrong on the mid-rim world of Ord Mantell. What had been a routine supply rendezvous with smugglers sympathetic to anti-imperial causes turned into a killing ground. The air was thick with ionized dust and the metallic scent of industry. Natasha felt it first, a tightening in her chest, the hairs on her arms standing on end. We're not alone, she murmured over the comm. Too late. Black-armored figures emerged from the shadows, Inquisitors, lightsabers igniting with snarling crimson blades. TIE fighters screamed overhead, herding civilians away from the docks. Imperial troops sealed exits with practiced coordination. Steve raised his shield instantly. Defensive formation. Protect the civilians. Thor stepped forward, lightning crackling along his armor. So, these are the dark champions of your galaxy. One of the Inquisitors laughed, voice distorted. You wield power without understanding. The dark side will teach you. The battle erupted with ferocity, unlike anything the Avengers had faced before. Lightsabers clashed against vibranium with a sound that vibrated through Steve's bones. Thor's lightning met force barriers that bent but did not break. Hulk roared as telekinetic blasts hurled debris with bone-crushing force, testing even his immense durability. Tony, hovering above the fray, quickly realized the danger. Okay, new problem. These guys aren't just reacting, they're predicting. It's like fighting a chess master who can see 5 moves ahead. Force precognition, Obi-Wan warned through the channel. They sense intent before action. You must disrupt your patterns. Easier said than done. Clint found himself locked in a deadly duel with an Inquisitor whose spinning saber deflected arrows mid-air. Natasha adapted on instinct, using smoke, misdirection, and close-quarters combat to force mistakes, but every opening was fleeting. Then the ground shook. A familiar, oppressive presence descended upon the battlefield. Darth Vader. The moment he arrived, the Force itself seemed to recoil. Thor staggered, surprised. Hulk growled, muscles tensing, not from fear, but from challenge. Steve felt an instinctive weight pressing on his mind, like standing beneath an avalanche held back by sheer will. So, Vader said, igniting his saber, you are the ones who defy the natural order. Tony hovered closer, repulsors flaring. Natural order? Buddy, I've fought gods, aliens, and robots with daddy issues. You're gonna need a better opener. Vader raised his hand. Tony slammed into a cargo tower as if struck by an invisible fist. The fight escalated instantly beyond anything before. Vader moved with terrifying efficiency, deflecting Thor's lightning, parrying Steve's strikes, using the Force to turn Hulk's own momentum against him. Yet for all his power, something unexpected happened. He did not dominate. Thor's blows forced Vader to retreat just once, but it was enough. Hulk grappled him, raw strength contesting the Force itself. Steve's shield absorbed a lightsaber strike that should not have been possible. Tony adapted mid-fight, recalibrating sensors to detect micro-fluctuations in Force use. Guys, Tony gasped, he's strong, but not omnipotent. He's concentrating. Make him split focus. They did. What followed was not victory, but survival. The Avengers fought not to defeat Vader, but to extract civilians and escape. Obi-Wan coordinated evacuation routes with grim focus, knowing full well the symbolism of this confrontation. Vader sensed him too, their connection flaring like a wound reopened. You cannot hide forever, Master, Vader said softly, almost mournfully. With a coordinated maneuver, Thor unleashing a blinding lightning storm, Hulk collapsing a structure, Tony detonating an ion pulse, the Avengers broke contact and fled into hyperspace. They escaped, but the cost was clear. Back aboard their concealed base within an asteroid field, the mood was heavy. Bruce nursed injuries that would heal, but slowly. Tony's armor bore scorch marks that defied easy explanation. Steve sat in silence, shield resting against his knee. They weren't trying to kill us, Natasha said quietly. Not all of us. They were testing. And learning, Clint added. Obi-Wan stood apart, hands folded. Vader now knows you are not merely powerful. You are principled. That makes you dangerous. And tempting. Thor clenched his fist. If he seeks corruption, he will find none here. Obi-Wan's gaze softened. The dark side does not tempt through weakness alone. It tempts through conviction, through the belief that one must do terrible things for the greater good. The implication settled heavily. The Empire escalated again, not with fleets, but with politics. Imperial diplomats began pressuring neutral systems, branding the Avengers as destabilizers. Bounties were issued through the underworld. Syndicates debated whether capturing one of these outsiders could earn favor with the Emperor himself. Mandalorian clans argued over whether these warriors were worthy allies or dangerous rivals. The galaxy was choosing sides. Steve finally broke the silence. We can't just keep reacting. Every time we fight them head-on, they adapt faster. We need to change the game. Tony nodded slowly. Agreed. Which means we stop being a strike team and start being an idea. Natasha raised an eyebrow. Care to elaborate, Stark? We expose the Empire's fear, Tony said. We hit symbolic targets. Free enslaved worlds. Disrupt propaganda. Show the galaxy that the Empire bleeds, and that resistance doesn't have to look like Jedi or rebels. Obi-Wan considered this. You would become something else. Neither soldiers nor symbols of ancient orders. Good, Steve said firmly. We never fit old categories anyway. Thor smiled grimly. Then let us become legend. As plans formed, one truth became unavoidable. The Avengers could no longer remain a unified unit forever. Their enemies were too many. Their presence too disruptive. To win, they would need to divide, operate independently across multiple fronts. A dangerous choice. A necessary one. In the shadows of the galaxy, Darth Vader knelt before the Emperor once more. They resist corruption, Vader said, but they are not immune. The Emperor's eyes gleamed. Then we shall offer them choices, and see which heroes are willing to become monsters. The war had shifted, not of fleets, not of armies, but of ideals. The Emperor had already foreseen their arrival. That was the most terrifying realization Bruce Banner came to as the stolen Lambda shuttle pierced the upper atmosphere of Coruscant, its hull rattling under re-entry stress. Not fear of the planet below, not the city that never ended, not the endless traffic lanes glowing like veins of light, but the sense that something ancient and malignant was waiting with infinite patience. Palpatine wasn't reacting. He was anticipating. The Avengers stood cramped within the shuttle's interior, weapons ready, minds sharp, nerves tight. Thor's grip on Stormbreaker crackled faintly with restrained lightning. Captain America checked the magnetic locks on his shield. Natasha adjusted her gauntlets, eyes calculating. Clint sat silently, already mapping angles and exits that didn't exist yet. Wanda's fingers glowed faintly red, her breath slow, controlled. Vision stood near the cockpit, phased halfway, watching energy flows ripple through hyperspace residue like echoes of ghosts. Luke Skywalker, seated apart from them, stared straight ahead. "The force is loud here," he said quietly, like a storm held behind a wall. Tony Stark broke the silence with forced levity. "Great. Evil weather. Exactly what my therapist warned me about." Thor turned toward Luke. "This presence you sense." "The Emperor." Luke nodded. "He knows we're coming." Steve exhaled. "Then we don't have the element of surprise." "No," Luke agreed. "But neither does he." The shuttle docked within a private landing bay beneath the Imperial Palace, a location that should have been impossible to access without clearance codes centuries old. Palpatine had opened the door. The bay lights ignited as the Avengers disembarked, revealing a wide marble floor etched with Sith runes, ancient and hungry. Imperial guards stood at attention along the walls, crimson armor gleaming, Force pikes held motionless. They didn't attack. They bowed. A slow, echoing clap reverberated from the shadows. Such distinguished guests, Emperor Palpatine's voice purred, amplified yet intimate, like a whisper inside the skull. From beyond this galaxy, and yet so familiar. He emerged from darkness, leaning on his cane, yellow eyes gleaming beneath the hood. Behind him stood Darth Vader. The air grew heavy. Thor stepped forward, lightning humming louder. "You are the Dark King of this realm." Palpatine smiled. "And you are a god pretending not to be." Tony muttered, "Oh, I hate him already." Palpatine's gaze moved from face to face, lingering on Wanda, Vision, and finally Luke. "My young Skywalker," he said softly, "you bring allies forged of chaos and contradiction. How delightful." Luke ignited his green lightsaber. "This ends today." Palpatine chuckled. "Does it?" Without warning, the Imperial guards attacked. The bay exploded into motion. Cap's shield slammed into the first guard, sending him flying into a column. Natasha rolled beneath a pike thrust and fired twin electro discs that shorted armor systems. Clint loosed arrows in rapid succession, each one precise, disabling rather than killing. Thor surged forward like a thunderbolt, Stormbreaker cleaving through weapons, lightning shattering Durasteel. Wanda unleashed crimson energy, lifting guards into the air and slamming them aside like dolls. Vision phased through a pike and solidified his fist inside the armor's power core, neutralizing it instantly. Luke engaged Vader. Their sabers clashed in a flash of green and red, sparks raining across the marble floor. "You are not ready," Vader said, voice distorted and calm. Luke gritted his teeth. "I don't need to defeat you. Just hold you." Palpatine watched it all with delight. Then he raised his cane, The Force crashed. Invisible pressure slammed into the Avengers simultaneously, driving several to their knees. Bruce felt his bones strain, anger surging as the Hulk pushed against the psychic weight. Tony's armor screamed warnings as repulsors flickered. Wanda cried out, red energy flaring violently as she fought back. Thor stood firm, teeth bared, lightning arcing wildly. You wield a false storm, old man. Palpatine's smile widened. Ah, let us see whose storm consumes the other. He extended his hand. Force lightning erupted, not blue, but sickly violet, amplified beyond natural limits. It struck Thor square in the chest. The Thunder God roared as lightning met lightning, Stormbreaker absorbing and redirecting the energy. The clash shook the landing bay, cracks spreading through marble. Steve saw the opening. Now, Tony launched upward, firing micromissiles at the ceiling supports. The explosions rained debris down, obscuring Palpatine's vision. Wanda focused, eyes glowing bright scarlet. She didn't push. She rewrote. The force around Palpatine twisted, momentarily disrupted by probability distortion. For the first time, his smile faltered. Vision phased forward, firing a concentrated Mind Stone beam, not lethal, but destabilizing the Sith energy field around the Emperor. Palpatine hissed. You are unexpected. Vader disengaged from Luke, turning sharply. Master. Palpatine raised a hand. Enough. The Imperial Guards lay defeated. Smoke curled through the chamber. Lightning flickered along broken runes. Palpatine straightened slowly, power coiling once more. You believe this is a battle, he said. It is not. It is an invitation. The chamber trembled as massive doors behind him slid open, revealing a towering spire descending deep into the planet, an ancient Sith focus, older than the Empire itself. The convergence of realities, Palpatine continued, voice echoing unnaturally. Your arrival has accelerated what I have spent lifetimes preparing. Bruce growled. You're ripping universes together. Yes, Palpatine said calmly. And soon they will obey. Luke's eyes widened. He's using the Force Nexus beneath Coruscant. Tony scanned rapidly. Yeah, bad news. That thing's not a battery. It's a cosmic blender. Thor raised Stormbreaker. Then we destroy it. Palpatine laughed, a sound devoid of joy. If you do, your universe collapses with mine. Silence fell. Wanda stepped forward, trembling. He's telling the truth. Palpatine inclined his head. Of course I am. Choice is the cruelest weapon. Steve met Tony's gaze. This is his endgame, Steve said quietly. Force us to choose who survives. Palpatine's eyes burned. You fight for freedom. I fight for order. Let us see which ideal demands the greater sacrifice. Vader looked between Luke and the Emperor, something unreadable stirring behind his mask. Luke sensed it. Hope. The Emperor turned away, descending toward the spire. Decide quickly, Palpatine called. The multiverse does not wait. As the doors sealed behind him, the chamber plunged into ominous silence. The Avengers stood at the edge of impossible choice. And somewhere deep beneath Coruscant, the Force itself began to scream. The Force did not scream without consequence. Deep beneath Coruscant, far below the Imperial Palace, the ancient Nexus awakened fully for the first time in millennia. Energy surged through forgotten conduits carved by Sith Lords whose names had been erased from history. The convergence Palpatine had engineered was no longer theoretical. It was active, unstable, and hungry. And the galaxy felt it. Across hyperspace lanes, navigators reported sudden distortions. Jedi relics long thought inert began to hum. Sith artifacts pulsed with renewed malevolence. On worlds aligned with the rebellion, Force-sensitive children cried out in terror or wonder, their abilities spiking unpredictably. The Avengers stood motionless in the shattered landing bay, the weight of what they had unleashed settling heavily on their shoulders. Steve Rogers broke the silence. He wasn't bluffing. No, Wanda said softly. Her hands trembled at her sides, red energy flickering like dying embers. The universes are already entangled. Tony Stark paced, armor partially disengaged, holographic data scrolling wildly in front of him. Okay, good news? This isn't a full collapse yet. Bad news? It's like two oceans pouring into each other through a crack the size of a fist. Thor planted Stormbreaker into the floor, lightning crackling weakly. For the first time since arriving in this galaxy, the god of thunder looked uncertain. In Asgardian legend, when realms bleed together, gods die. Luke Skywalker closed his eyes, reaching outward through the Force. What he felt made his breath catch. It's not just the Emperor, Luke said. He's anchored himself to the Nexus, but others are responding, dark and light. Vader stood unmoving near the sealed doors, helmet angled slightly downward. The Emperor's presence still loomed through the Force, but something else now stirred within the Dark Lord himself. Conflict. Palpatine's voice echoed faintly through the chamber, carried by the Force rather than sound. Decide. Bruce Banner clenched his fists, Hulk pressing against the edge of control. We can't just leave. Not like this. Natasha glanced at Steve. But staying makes us part of the war. Steve didn't hesitate. We already are. Within hours, the effects became impossible to hide. Imperial intelligence flagged multiple systems, experiencing energy anomalies matching neither known Jedi nor Sith signatures. Reports reached Moff councils of armored warriors wielding weapons beyond blasters, of lightning storms without weather systems, of cities briefly plunged into gravity distortions. Palpatine allowed the reports to flow. Fear was useful. He summoned his inner circle to the throne chamber above the Nexus. Red Guard stood vigilant as the Emperor watched holographic projections flicker to life, rebel fleet movements, mercenary contracts shifting, neutral systems reconsidering their allegiance. The outsiders have become symbols, Palpatine said calmly. Symbols inspire hope, and hope must be crushed. Vader stood at his side, silent. Yet within the Dark Lord, the Force churned violently. Luke's presence, amplified by the Avengers' arrival, had cracked something long buried. Vader could feel the Nexus pulling at him, not toward power, but toward choice. The Emperor sensed it. You hesitate, Palpatine said mildly. Vader knelt. I serve. For now, Palpatine replied. On Yavin 4, Mon Mothma listened as intelligence officers delivered the impossible. The Avengers, the Badhan spy reported, are real. They fought the Emperor's forces on Coruscant itself. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Leia Organa closed her eyes briefly, feeling the Force ripple outward. If Palpatine feels threatened enough to engage directly, she said, then this changes everything. But they're wild cards, General Dodonna cautioned. Unknown loyalties. Unknown limits. Leia looked up. They stood against him. That's enough for now. She turned to the star map. Prepare diplomatic channels. If these warriors are reshaping the battlefield, the rebellion cannot afford to remain distant. Back on Coruscant, the Avengers moved quickly. Tony and Vision worked together, mapping the Nexus's energy flows. What they found was terrifying. It's not just a portal, Tony said, voice low. It's a feedback loop. The Force is adapting to us, and we're adapting to it. Vision nodded. Our presence is altering probability vectors across this reality. Clint grimaced. So we're making things worse by existing? Not worse, Wanda said. Different. Thor stepped forward. Then we must act as stewards, not conquerors. If we leave chaos in our wake, we become no better than tyrants. Steve placed a hand on Thor's shoulder. We help stabilize this galaxy. Then we find a way home. Luke met Steve's gaze. You can't just leave. Not anymore. Silence. Luke continued, voice steady but heavy with responsibility. The Force has acknowledged you. The Jedi will study you. The Sith will hunt you. Legends will grow. Natasha exhaled slowly. Great. We're midst now. Bruce looked down at his hands. I didn't ask to be part of someone else's destiny. Luke smiled faintly. Neither did I. Palpatine acted swiftly. Within days, the Empire launched coordinated strikes against Outer Rim worlds suspected of harboring rebel sympathies. Worlds the Avengers had passed through, aided, or merely been seen near. The message was clear. Your presence brings suffering. On one such world, a small agricultural moon, Imperial walkers marched through burning fields. Stormtroopers advanced as civilians fled in panic. Then the sky cracked with thunder. Thor descended like a god of war, lightning tearing through AT-AT joints. Hulk smashed through armored columns, roaring defiance. Captain America rallied civilians, shield flashing as blaster bolts ricocheted harmlessly away. The battle was over in minutes, and the galaxy watched. Holonet footage spread faster than Imperial sensors could suppress it. Hope ignited. Vader confronted Luke alone within the Force Nexus chamber days later. "You endanger everything," Vader said. Luke stood firm. "So do you." The Nexus pulsed between them, reflecting red and green light. "The Emperor will destroy entire systems to break them," Vader continued. "You bring chaos." Luke shook his head. "They bring choice. Something you once believed in." Silence. The Force swirled violently as Vader turned away. "You do not know what I was," he said. Luke stepped forward. "I know what you still are." For the first time in decades, Vader did not strike him down. The galaxy adjusted. Jedi scholars began studying Avengers encounters as living anomalies, beings who bent reality without drawing directly from the Force. Sith cultists sought to replicate their power through dark rituals, often with disastrous results. Imperial doctrine shifted, prioritizing containment over conquest. The Emperor focused inward, strengthening his hold on the Nexus, even as cracks in his control began to show. The rebellion gained allies emboldened by the Avengers' defiance. Neutral systems armed themselves, believing the impossible now achievable. And the Avengers? They became something new. Not rulers, not saviors, catalysts. Standing atop a Coruscant spire, the team looked out over the endless cityscape. Tony broke the silence. "You realize there's no undo button for this?" Steve nodded. "No. But there's responsibility." Thor raised Stormbreaker, lightning dancing once more, stronger now, tempered by the Force's strange harmony. "Then let us bear it with honor." Luke joined them, gazing toward the stars. "The Force moves through all things," he said. "Now it moves differently." Far below, deep within the Nexus, the Emperor smiled. The game had changed, and the galaxy would never be the same again. What began as an accident of cosmic forces became a turning point written into the very fabric of the Star Wars galaxy. The arrival of the Avengers did more than introduce powerful outsiders. It redefined balance. For the first time in generations, the Force was no longer the sole axis upon which destiny turned. Gods, scientists, soldiers, and monsters from another universe proved that willpower, sacrifice, and moral clarity could rival ancient mysticism. The Empire learned fear, not of rebellion alone, but of the unknown. Palpatine, master manipulator of fate, found himself facing variables he could not fully control. His grip on the galaxy tightened, yet fractures appeared where absolute certainty once ruled. Even Darth Vader, forged by loss and obedience, felt the pull of choice again. The rebellion gained more than allies. It gained belief. Proof that tyranny was not inevitable, that legends could be challenged, that hope could come from beyond the stars themselves. And the Avengers? They did what they had always done. They adapted. They refused crowns, rejected domination, and chose responsibility over power. In a galaxy obsessed with destiny, they stood as proof that freedom is not granted by prophecy, but earned through action. Yet nothing remains untouched. Jedi philosophy began to evolve. Sith ambitions grew more dangerous. The Force itself changed, subtler, wider, less absolute. The Avengers could one day leave, but the ripples they created never would. Somewhere in the vastness of space, new heroes would rise inspired by impossible stories. New villains would seek to claim what was never meant to be theirs. And the galaxy would move forward, forever altered by the moment when Earth's mightiest heroes stepped into a war among the stars. Because when worlds collide, legends aren't erased. They are reborn. And the question would echo across hyperspace for generations to come. What if they never left?